Is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Yes! Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it. One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. What a huge victory for the Philadelphia Union on Sunday as they defeated the Columbus Crew 3-0 in a game that they should have won, with that being their third to last home game at home. The Philadelphia Union need to get all 3 points, and Jim Curtin talked about in his press conference how that this time of the season it's important to get a ton of goals. It's important to keep those clean sheets where things get super tight. And looking at the Eastern Conference standings, the Philadelphia Union, they're within reach of getting second place. They have a game in hand. They still have to play Nashville at home. We'll talk about the standings a little bit later in the podcast. But look, Philadelphia Union in third place, where a couple weeks ago everybody's flipping out about this team, have no faith, and maybe people still don't have faith in this team because, look, it's the Columbus Crew, and yes, they're the defending MLS champions, but they're not playing like the defending MLS champions of last season, where they've had so many injuries this season. Players that were huge for them last season aren't making those big contributions like they were last season. And for the Columbus fans out there, and I know there's a couple people that listen to this podcast that live in Ohio that are Crew fans. It's got to be tough for you guys. So the Philadelphia Union take care of business, and I can't say that I'm surprised, and I think a lot of you guys probably aren't surprised either, just looking at how the Columbus Crew have played this season. But before I get into news, before I get into talking about this game, before I talk about some listener questions that Michael Van Zant left me when I was on vacation, I want to say thank you to Ricky Zelfer for filling in, doing a preview for the New York Red Bulls game last week. That was a fun episode to edit. I appreciate you, Ricky, for not going longer than an hour. So I kept the editing time within an hour. So yeah, really, really appreciate that. Did a fantastic job. And if you guys haven't listened to his preview episode, go ahead and listen to that, because that's the latest episode other than this one, because obviously I haven't dropped this yet. So on your feeds, yeah, Ricky's episode will be the latest podcast until this one gets uploaded. But like I said, news, want to talk about the Columbus Crew. So let's just go ahead straight into the news. Yeah, so starting off, the Philadelphia Union last week, they announced that they have loaned Cole Turner to USL side El Paso Locomotive until the end of the season. El Paso, they sit in first place in the Western Conference Mountainside Division. Cole last Friday made his debut against the Colorado Switchbacks, which former Bethlehem Steel manager Brendan Burke manages them. Cole played all 90 in that game. And look, it is a team where I don't watch it too much USL, hardly any USL, unless it's somebody that I know that's playing in the league, or any former Union players. I'll try to catch a game like that. But yeah, not too much USL action here. But yeah, to see Cole make his debut, to play 90 minutes, to go to a team that's in first place, where they felt like, look, we already have a tight midfield, but let's go ahead and bring reinforcements in here. We've seen Cole play as a center back for Bethlehem Steel, U2, whatever you guys want to call them. He's primarily a defensive midfielder in number 6. And we know things were tight here at the Philadelphia Union for him to try to get minutes. They bring in Orvats, they bring in El Brujo, and Cole Turner gets a contract, and all 3 of those guys battle it out last year for the starting spot. And Martinez beats both of those guys for the number 6, and Cole Turner found minutes hard to come by. And with U2 not having a season, not having a league to play in this season, yeah, it's hard for his development. And I know the Union, every now and then, they try to find games to schedule for U2, but they're not playing games week in, week out, where, let's face it, these young players that don't see minutes every single game, your Paxton Aronson, your Jack McGlynn, Cole Turner, these guys need to be playing week in, week out against opposition that's going to help them get better. So Cole Turner goes into USL, where I think that he'll excel playing in USL. I think he could definitely have a career in MLS. It's probably not with the Philadelphia Union, but for sure he's good enough to play in the USL. We saw it with the Steel, and the Union's mindset was, we're not going to bring in old players in our second team. We're not going to bring in players that have been around different teams. We're going to play the kids. And a lot of the times when the Union 2 were going against other USL teams, they were going against seasoned veterans, people that have played in the league for a long time, where, let's face it, a lot of these guys that the Union were using were still in the academy or just signed their first professional deal. So, I mean, they were getting beat around every now and then, but Cole Turner was one of those players that held his own for U2 when the Union were in the league playing against teams every single week. So to see him go ahead and play the rest of the season on loan with El Paso, hopefully Cole continues to get minutes. Hopefully he can help them win the championship in USL. And hopefully people in the Union are taking notice of that. And by the time the season starts next season, hopefully they give him a fair chance to be that backup for Martinez. I know that's part of the reason why they brought in Jesus Brunel to be that backup for Jose Martinez to play at the number 8. So, Cole has a lot of players in front of him, but if he can get consistent minutes for El Paso, I think Cole Turner's going to definitely get a look next season and preseason for the Union. So hopefully he takes advantage of those chances that he gets. But the second piece of news that I want to bring up, staying with the Philadelphia Union, we've been talking about this a lot on Twitter. A lot of people have been talking about this. It was always coming, right? FC Cincinnati, they have confirmed that Chris Albright is their new general manager. Chris was the Union's technical director for the last 7-8 years. He leaves that role, and look, let's face it. We all knew that it was a matter of time that it was happening because he wasn't getting the GM spot at the Union because of Ernst Tanner. And I don't blame Chris Albright for going ahead, getting a job promotion. Now he gets to be in charge of a team. He has full control over a team. And look, Cincinnati's been a laughingstock ever since they've been in MLS. But their owners have shown that, they're not afraid to spend the money, that they will give their general managers, their managers, money to mess with. And you bring in somebody like Chris Albright, who's been a part of the Union, like I said, the last 7-8 years. So he's been with the Union under a couple different general managers. He's helped turn this team around in 2019 with Ernst Tanner. And I know I saw some people arguing on Twitter saying, oh, well, I don't know how much Chris Albright's had a hand in what the Union are, how much success the Union have had since Ernst Tanner's got here. It's all been Ernst Tanner, not Chris Albright. But I tend not to believe that because in the press release that the Union sent out to the media, Ernst Tanner and Jim Curtin were both really, really high. They both mentioned just how much of an understanding that Chris Albright has of the salary cap in MLS, how he has such high recruitment skills bringing in players to the club. And neither one of these guys are just going to say that just to say it. Now, I think both of these guys really, really believe it. And I think this is an outstanding hire for Cincinnati because, look, Chris Albright, he's played in MLS. He's been a part of the Union's organization for the last 7-8 years with their front office. This is the type of move you want to bring in. You want to bring in a guy who understands MLS, and what better guy to bring in than Chris Albright, who's worked under Ernst Tanner the last couple of years, and to get high praise from not just Jim, but from Ernst too, that says, his understanding of the salary cap is super duper high. It's the best in MLS. That his player recruitment skills are really, really good for the Philadelphia Union. Ernst Tanner has a great network for players all over Europe. We've seen him bring in the likes of Kai Wagner, Jose Martinez, Leon Flock, Kasper Schibelko, players that we've never heard of before. But you got to look at Chris Albright. He was here when the Philadelphia Union brought in El Sino. He was a part of the time with Ernie Stewart when they brought in Jamiro Montero. So it's not like, okay, a lot of these players on this team were all because of Ernst Tanner. It's not like Chris Albright hasn't brought in any player that hasn't contributed to the Philadelphia Union. It's the reason why Ali Bedoya came to the Philadelphia Union. So, look, Chris Albright, I think, is going to do a very good job with Cincinnati. The episode after this, I'm going to be talking FC Cincinnati, and I'm sure we'll get into the whole Chris Albright to Cincinnati topic right there, talking to the guys of FC Cincinnati Talk, I believe their podcast and website's called. So, should be a good conversation to talk about the Cincinnati game, talk about Chris Albright joining Cincinnati as the GM. Interested to hear their thoughts because I know from Philadelphia Union, we're really, really disappointed to lose this guy, but we knew it was a matter of time because, look, who wants to be in the number 2 when you have the chance to be a number 1? So it was always about the right place, the right time, the right organization. In Cincinnati, they're definitely going to give Chris money to spend, and hopefully Cincinnati, they have a fast trigger. They seem to fire coaches super duper fast. They fire GM super duper fast. So hopefully that's not the case with Chris Albright. If they do, I know the Philadelphia Union will welcome him with open arms. But look, just going back to that press release that the Union sent, Chris and Ernst, they both mentioned too that they've learned a lot working with each other the last couple of years. And now I think it's going to be time to see, okay, well, let's see, does Ernst Tanner really have a good understanding of how MLS works now that Chris isn't here? How good of a recruiter is Chris going to be with not having Ernst Tanner there, with all of his connections he had with the scouting network at New York Red Bull? So it's going to be interesting to see just what these guys can do without each other being there. And I think Chris is going to do a great job. It's just a matter of, okay, how much does Cincinnati believe in him? How much patience do they have? And the other thing, too, is this isn't, in my opinion, the only guy that's going to leave the Philadelphia Union to go to Cincinnati. I think it makes too much sense for Pat Noonan to be the next head coach for FC Cincinnati. A lot of people, myself including, we said once Jim Curtin leaves, we want Pat Noonan to take over to be the head coach for the Philadelphia Union. And it just makes too much sense for him to go to FC Cincinnati. I think it is going to happen. I think him and Chris Albright have a great relationship. When Chris was thanking the coaches, the first person that he thanked, not Jim Curtin, not Ernst Tanner, it was Pat Noonan. So I think it's only a matter of time before Pat Noonan gets announced as the head coach for FC Cincinnati. And then you got to look at, okay, more coaching staff members that Pat Noonan's going to bring in. Probably guys that none of us have heard of, probably lower level guys. Let's see from the analytic department. Let's see who Chris Albright brings over with him. So I think we're going to see FC Cincinnati take away a lot of people from the Philadelphia Union in the next couple months. You got to look at some players. Matai Orvats, maybe that's a guy that Cincinnati says in the offseason, hey, look, we know that you guys have absolutely no plans of using in the future. Chris Albright was there when Ernst Tanner brought him in. I'm sure Chris has seen Orvats in practice. I'm sure he knows what type of player he is, and maybe he believes that, hey, look, there's a lot of good players in Philadelphia, but I believe that you have enough quality to do it here at Cincinnati, where you look at Cincinnati, they've struggled defensively, where Orvats has played as a center back. He played as a number 6. He can play as a right back. So this is a very versatile player. He hasn't got his chance with the Philadelphia Union. Maybe he ends up in FC Cincinnati. If it happens, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. And then you got to look at, I feel like El Senior, maybe Colin. I know both of those guys were taking coaching classes. I guess it's going to be, okay, do the Union offer them coaching roles after their playing careers are over, or does Cincinnati beat them to the punch? And I guess the question is, how much do these two guys want to leave Philadelphia? Because it seems like they're enjoying their time in Philadelphia. I know El Senior's been very, very high on living in Philadelphia. How his family's very, very happy in Philadelphia. So I don't know. I think it would take a lot for El Senior to move his family to Cincinnati, but if the Philadelphia Union don't give him a coaching role after he's done playing, and Cincinnati says, "Hey, look, we'll take you here to be an assistant coach to Pat Noonan," I think that's something that El Senior has to consider, and same with Colin too. So yeah, just Chris Albright's definitely not going to be the first person to leave the Philadelphia Union to go to Cincinnati. It's only the start of it. So wish Chris Albright the best, just not against the Philadelphia Union. But let's go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union versus the Columbus Crew. Like I said, we all know that game ended 3-0 to the Philadelphia Union in just an unbelievable day from the Union where, yeah, I mentioned this is a game that the Union should have won. They did win. You always hope that the Union could have scored more goals, but 3 goals, that's a lot of goals. And they had chances to score a couple more and couldn't put those chances away. But it is a game. It is a game that the Union should have won. And they did a fantastic job to see the game out in the second half. I thought the Union absolutely dominated the Columbus Crew in the first half, where they limited Columbus just to one shot in the first half. And that shot wasn't even one target. And the Union start the second half super duper hot. 30 seconds in, they get a goal with Alan Bedoya. And then the red card to Kai Wagner in the 64th, 65th minute, something like that. I'm not sure that was a red card, and who knows if the Philadelphia Union are going to appeal it for this game against Cincinnati on Saturday. I would expect that they probably won't, but I'm not going to talk about that Cincinnati game here, what the Union may or may not do. It will be interesting to see what the Union announce in the next couple of days, what they'll do about that. But the Union really had to dig in deep when Kai Wagner went off. They were up 2-0, down a man for a good amount of the second half. Andre Blake made 2 huge saves. Obviously, the penalty save on Pedro Santos, but I think the better save was on Darlington Nagbe. That ball was dipping, and it was a great bend on it by Darlington Nagbe, and Andre Blake gets up, pushes it over the bar, and just a fantastic save. It's a world-class save, and Darlington Nagbe, we all know, has that in his locker. How many times do we have to be salty that Nagbe won goal of the season last year over Glesnes? It's a good goal, but that free kick by Glesnes against LAFC, I don't know. Center back, a knuckleball from 40 yards out, doesn't happen all the time. But at the same time, Darlington Nagbe's goal was pretty good. But does he score that if Andre Blake's in goal? I don't know. We saw, like I said, he had a great shot against Andre Blake on Sunday, and Andre comes up big with a save. And in my opinion, this is why Andre is the best goalkeeper in MLS, one of the best goalkeepers in CONCACAF. I would say probably the second. Kilo Navas is, in my opinion, the best goalkeeper in CONCACAF. You can say Ochoa is better than Andre Blake, but yeah, Andre Blake's definitely the best goalkeeper in MLS. Top 3 for sure in all of CONCACAF. And I believe this is why Andre Blake is good enough to play in Europe. And he signed a contract extension. Does a team come in the offseason and blow the Union away with an offer? Maybe, and I'm not saying that the Union won't consider it, but it would take a lot for the Philadelphia Union to turn down an offer, a huge offer for Andre Blake, who is definitely in the prime of his career, being in his 30s, but somebody's blowing you out of the water with an offer for Andre Blake, you definitely got to consider it. And we would hate to lose Andre Blake, but the more and more that he makes these huge saves for the Philadelphia Union, for Jamaica, teams are definitely going to take notice. And I'm sure teams are already inquiring about Andre Blake. And Jim and Ernst have talked about it in the past, how they have multiple teams asking about multiple guys on this team. And that's what happens when you're successful the last couple of years. People want your players. And just got to appreciate Andre Blake for the time that he's here, for however long that is. And Sergio Santos, I thought, put in a really good shift. Unfortunate not to get a goal, but definitely was unfortunate not to get an assist. Great first-time cross to Casper in the second half. Casper traps the ball down and shoots the ball right at Bush. Bush should have made the save. It was a good save, but at the same time, too, should he have made the save when you look at Leon Flock shot, and Leon Flock said, yeah, it was a terrible shot, but found its way in the back of the net, and that's all what matters, right? You got to take those shots. You never know what's going to happen, and Bush does a terrible job, and the ball's on the back of the net, and it is funny, too. You look at the stats after the game where the Union's XG was less than 1, while Columbus's was 1.5. And that just tells you, because of that, it really was the Andre Blake show. It shows you how much Andre Blake means to the Philadelphia Union. You look the last couple of years, how many points that Andre Blake saves the Philadelphia Union. He definitely saved us a point against Columbus because let's face it, we're down 10 men. Columbus, if they convert that penalty, now it's 2-1 us, they're going to keep bringing that pressure. As soon as we score that second goal, and especially when Kai Wagner went off, it was nothing but pressure in our defensive third by the Columbus Crew. And so, I mean, the Union did a good job to deal with the pressure that the Columbus Crew were putting at them ever since Kai Wagner went off. And I know Jim Curtin mentioned, when they brought in Stuart Finley, they wanted to play a back 3, but at times it looked like a back 5, and that's not what he wanted. But, he was happy with the way that the guys played defensively. Alvis Powell, I thought, played really, really well in the first half, made a lot of great runs going forward. This is a guy who we've seen be more of a defense-minded defender, in my opinion, as opposed to what Paso brings offensively. But it seems like the longer that Powell's been here, the more and more he's understanding how we want to play. And you do feel for him where you know that he has MLS quality to start. He starts for the Jamaican national team. But when you have a right back like Paso, who's your normal starter, it's hard to try to get Alvis Powell minutes. And I suspect next season Alvis Powell won't be here. He'll probably be playing someplace else in MLS. But yeah, Alvis Powell played really good. Unfortunate that he gave up a penalty. His second penalty, I believe, that he gave up. He gave up one against DC United away, I believe it was, in August. And then he gave up the penalty Sunday. I think that was probably 50-50. I can see why the referee gave it. But when you give the penalty, you've got to have some really clear and obvious evidence that it wasn't a penalty. And in my opinion, there wasn't enough to overturn that call. So once the referee says, it's a penalty, it's going to take a miracle to overturn that penalty. And Andre Blake, like I just said, came up big. An XG of 1.5 for the Columbus Crew. With the chances they had, they should have won this game. And Andre Blake just continues to be Andre Blake. And it's, like I said, it's why I believe he's the best goalkeeper in MLS. And overall, just extremely happy with the way the Philadelphia Union played. And you go ahead and look, and they were deadly on the counterattack. That's how 2 of the 3 goals came, on the counterattack. It's the Union of old. We've seen it so many times in the past 2 years where the Union win the ball back in the defensive third, and now they're looking for that killer pass from the defense to bypass the midfield and to send one of the forwards into the ball. Or so many times they would look for that outlet pass to Brendan Aronson or Jamiro Montero out on the wing. These guys have yards of space to dribble into, and now they're looking for Casper Sergio or Corey Burke, and there's a goal for the Union because they hit you on the counterattack. And we haven't seen too much of that, but that's exactly what the Philadelphia Union did on the goal that Ali Bedoya scored. Leon Flock loses the ball, wins it right back, plays the ball into Ali. Ali finds Casper, and Casper plays a great ball into Ali Bedoya, and Ali Bedoya puts the ball in the back of the net. You saw the goal that Leon Flock scored. Unbelievable bit of skill by Quinn Sullivan to pass the ball to herself. The 2 defenders for Columbus looked disinterested once Quinn chipped the ball over their heads, and they made no effort to chase after Quinn, and Quinn plays a great ball into Leon Flock. And I'm not sure how you're a man up and you let the Union have numbers on you in the box when you're a man up. But nonetheless, great goal by Leon Flock to get his first goal, but maybe not a great goal, but a goal nonetheless. Great cross by Quinn Sullivan. But that skill to hit the ball over the 2 defenders, oh man, that's unbelievable. And look, you get unexpected goals from Leon Flock, from Jack Elliott, from Ali Bedoya, and Leon Flock. I mean, I do want to focus on that real quick. If you guys haven't listened to the podcast, Leon Flock's interview on the MLS Gone Wild podcast, Leon Flock talks about how this truly is his first season of full first team football and how he knows that his passing, his finishing isn't what it needs to be. He knows that it needs to get better. But he said, playing in the lower leagues, playing in Europe, the whole mindset in Europe is, yeah, you better be good defensively. You better track back. You better win the ball back. Because if you're not, Leon said, it doesn't matter how good of a player you are, you're going to lose your starting spot if you're not working your tail off defensively. And so Leon Flock has that defensive mindset to always press, to always win the ball back, to do whatever it takes to get the ball back, to go into the transition, to hit the team on the counterattack. And you can see it. And that's exactly what Brendan Aronson tried to do for the Philadelphia Union last season. That's what he continues to do with Salzburg. That's what he does for the U.S. men's national team. And yeah, Leon Flock isn't offensively gifted like Brendan Aronson was. But look, the kid's only 20 years old. And the more and more that he plays with the Philadelphia Union, the better I think he'll get offensively. And I know he also said on that podcast that he was asked, yeah, what position do you see yourself as? And he said either a number 8 or a left back. And he said he doesn't mind playing a 6, but he'll play a double 6 and a double pivot. And he played at the 6 as the lone number 6, and he played well against Columbus. I really did a great job to shut down Zelarayan, one of the best number 10s in all of MLS, who is not having a great year like he had last season for the Columbus Crew. But Leon Flock just, I thought he had himself an outstanding game for the Philadelphia Union. Gets a goal, well-deserved goal. Jack Elliott, a free kick. And I know in the press conference, Jim, Ali, and Leon were all joking that, yeah, he didn't mean to hit that Jim said that after practice, Jack Elliott stays after working on free kicks, and he tells Jack Elliott, he says, yeah, I don't know why you're working on those free kicks when you know the guys aren't going to let you have it. And Matt Freese tweeted, I think at halftime, and said, yeah, he works on those free kicks after practice every single day. He's the last guy to leave the field because he's working on those free kicks. And I believe Marlon LeBlanc posted a video at halftime too of Jack Elliott scoring a free kick in 2016 at West Virginia University when Marlon was the head coach there. And so it's good to see that Jack Elliott has that in his locker. Yeah, if it was Eloy Room, it definitely would have got saved in my opinion. But look, it doesn't matter. I mean, the ball went in the back of the net. Doesn't matter who's on the field. As long as you put the ball in the back of the net, you take advantage of your chances, you'll take it. So it's great to see that we have 2 center backs that aren't afraid to take free kicks. And now you got to pay attention to both of these guys because you know they can strike a soccer ball really, really well. And then, like I mentioned, just the goal by Ali Bedoya is unbelievable. And great first-time finish, and I wasn't surprised that Ali scored. I thought that if he got a chance, he was probably going to put it in the back of the net because watching him warm up, I believe he hit every single one of his shots in the goal, and he hit one really, really good upper 90 shot, and he yelled, he screamed and everything in practice because it went in, and he knew he hit that ball clean, and because he was hitting balls so well in the warm-ups, I knew that Ali got a chance, there was a high chance that he was going to score a goal. And so Jim Curtin mentioned just the unexpected goal scorers in the game against Columbus, and this was his thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, we're not going to be a team that's going to have a 30 goals or 25 goal scorer. No team in the league does this year. So we have to find ways to manufacture goals. And again, they were all different types of goals. And in the biggest games, the one play type games, you need someone to score a free kick. You need to come out at halftime with the right intensity and get that second goal, which is the best form of defense. I thought that was a real Union goal where Leon lost the ball, won it back, and now opened up a transition. Obviously, a great cutback ball that we work on, and Ali arriving in the box late, getting numbers in there. So that's a big goal. And then the third one, even down a man now to stay disciplined enough to get numbers forward to win a ball. Quinn makes a great play for us, and we kill the game off. So, yeah, 3 types of totally different goals. But overall, again, a great complete team performance. And again, we're a group that's going to need goals to come from all 3 lines, the back line, the midfield, and the strikers. And today was a great example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, none of the strikers got on the goal sheet. Daniel Gazdag, where you expect him to hope to score a goal playing as the number 10, where you look and see all the goals that he scored in the Hungarian league, but not here to bash Daniel Gazdag. I believe in this guy 100%. Look, you don't really expect Jack Elliott to get on the goal sheet, even though we've seen him score in the past. You don't expect Leon Flock to get on the goal sheet, where he's been close this season, but it seemed like nothing was going in for him. And Ali's only scored 15 goals, I believe it is, for the Union in his career. So it's not like he's scoring every game. It's not like he's scoring every month either. So to see these 3 guys who don't typically score goals, yeah, it's a great team performance. I guess you can look at it and say it's concerning when you look and see that, yeah, our strikers, the guys who you pay money to put the ball in the back of the net, score goals. They didn't score any goals against a Columbus team that's not great. Yeah, I guess you can say that's concerning, but look, the Union nonetheless scored goals. Casper didn't score a goal. He got an assist to Ali Bedoya. Sergio Santos played a great one-time cross, like I said, into Casper Shabelka, who should have been putting that ball in the back of the net to make the game 3-0. So it's not like the strikers weren't doing anything in this game. They were opening up space. They were putting in good crosses. Just Casper couldn't finish. Ali could finish. So that's the difference right there. And hopefully these guys can just continue to play well. And I believe if they continue to work their socks off, continue to just work so hard offensively, that they will be rewarded with goals. And like Jim said, you always got to rely on different people to step up at different times. And that's exactly what these guys did. And so if you go ahead, like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, looking at the last 7 games, the Philadelphia Union, they have FC Cincinnati. And then after Cincinnati, they go ahead and play Montreal. And then they're at Minnesota. So the next 3 games are all the way. Then they come home to Nashville. Then they go away to Toronto. They come back home to Cincinnati. And they finish the season against New York City in New York City. And Mike Thomas, he brought up a great stat on Twitter, and he said that the Union are currently 4-2-6 against teams over the Eastern Conference playoff line. Mike also said that the 3 games for him that are going to be telling if the Union are serious or not are at Minnesota versus Nashville and at New York City. And I definitely agree with that, but in my opinion, I think the games that are really, really going to be telling, yes, you want those games against Minnesota, Nashville, and New York City, you want the Union to play well against those teams because all 3 of those teams are in the playoffs, and 2 out of those 3 games are on the road. So eventually, no matter if the Union finish 2nd or 3rd, they're going to have to go on the road and play a playoff game when the playoffs start on the road. So, yeah, you want to see them play well at Minnesota, at New York City, where they've struggled. You remember a couple seasons ago, that 4-3 victory, I believe it was. Austin Trusty scored the goal against Minnesota. So be crazy if a game like that happened again. But for me, I think the 3 games that are going to be telling are the 2 games against Cincinnati and the game against Toronto, because the Union, they always struggle against the teams that they should beat. And realistically, the Union should probably get 9 out of 9 points against those 3 teams because of how badly those 2 teams are struggling, but I can see the Union dropping points in one of those games. So, in my opinion, yeah, I agree with what Mike said, the Minnesota, Nashville, and New York City game. But I think the Union, they've got to beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, just like they were supposed to beat Columbus. Well, this Saturday, they're expected to beat Cincinnati. So, it starts this Saturday. Playing Cincinnati, they've got to get all 3 points against Cincinnati. But you guys heard me mention a couple episodes ago where I said the last 11 games, the Union need 20 out of 33 points to get 55 points on the season. I would think that that's good enough if the Union got 20 points. In their last 3 games, they got 7 out of 9 points. And that means I said they only need 20 points. They only need 13 more points in their last 7 games. They're undefeated in the last 4 games, 8 goals for, 2 goals against, no losses. They've scored 1 goal in 2 of those games and 3 goals in 2 of those games. So, yeah, it's crazy to see the Union. Okay, we can put up 3 goals, and then the next game, yeah, we can only put up 1 goal. So that is definitely a little bit concerning because you don't always know what you're going to get offensively from the Philadelphia Union, and none of your offensive players scored against Columbus Crew on Sunday, but nonetheless, the Union scored 3 goals. So, yeah, for me, the 3 games that I'm most looking forward to that I think are going to be telling, if the Union really want to finish in second place in the Eastern Conference, then they need to get points against Toronto and Cincinnati, and it would be great if they can get 9 out of 9 points, but I don't have faith in this team that they will. I can honestly see the Union just getting a point this Saturday against Cincinnati, but again, I don't want to talk too much about that game yet. At home, you always expect the Union to get 3 points, so when Cincinnati comes to town, yeah, you expect 3 points, but I don't know. Saturday, we shall see. Next episode, like I said, I'll be talking all things Cincinnati, so you gotta tune in for that if you want to hear my thoughts on Cincinnati. But the last thing I want to bring up, Michael Van Zant, like I said, when I was on vacation, he asked me 2 listener questions. He asked, number one, right now, who are my 3 MVPs in MLS? And so I'll start from 3 all the way to 1. Number 3 on my list is Daniel Shalhoub for Sporting Kansas City. Number 1, he's tied for second in MLS with 16 goals. He's tied with Rui Diaz, who you can make a case should be top 3. He's not on my list. The thing about Shalhoub, all 16 of his goals that he scored this season, none of them have been penalties. That is fantastic. Where you look at Ali Kamara, who you can make a case that he's having an MVP season with 17 goals this season, but out of those 17 goals, 8 of them have been penalty kicks. So, yeah, I mean, a goal is a goal, right? But it's not like you're scoring from open play. You should be scoring a penalty kick. And so 8 out of his 17 goals have been from the penalty spot. You can go ahead and look at somebody from Montreal Impact, too. I think Nancy's having Wolf and Nancy, the manager there. I think, my opinion, I think he should win manager of the season. It's a guy that nobody was talking about. Nobody thought Montreal would be in the hunt for the playoffs. Nobody thought that they would be playing this well. And yeah, people are going to say, well, look what Bruce Arena is doing with New England. He's going to set all these different records for MLS. He's already set so many records this season with New England. Yeah, you can say Brian Schmelzer should win manager of the year with Seattle. And I feel like people say that every single season, but how don't you give Wilfred Nancy the manager of the year, where you look at this team, what they did last year under Thierry Henry, where he was trying to get them to get back to the basics. And I think he made a comment last season where it's kind of hard to teach players the basics where you're professionals, and if you don't know the basics, then you're basically uncoachable. And Wilfred Nancy took the same team that Thierry Henry had last season, and he's really got this team to come together, to buy into a system. They have this togetherness, and I think a lot of things that people are overlooking is at the beginning of the season, Montreal started the season down in Florida because of COVID, where Canada said, yeah, if you're a professional sports team, we don't want you playing in Canada because of COVID. So they had to play their home games down in Florida. They couldn't go back to Canada and play games until halfway through the season. And because of that, I think we've seen a togetherness where it's taken Montreal super duper far this season. And just like we saw the Philadelphia Union, where they came out of the bubble and MLS is back last season, I think out of all the teams, the Union had the best togetherness. And I think that's why they went on a fantastic run in the second half of the season to win the Supporters' Shield. Unlucky to draw New England, because when you play a team 7-8 times in the season, yeah, you're eventually going to lose. So, yeah, I mean, I do feel bad not mentioning a player from Montreal just because of the season that they're having. Another team that's having a fantastic season's the Colorado Rapids, where you can also make a case for Robin Fraser is just a coach that has one DP on their team, where they're sitting between second and third right now in their Western Conference, where I think I saw the stat where it said Colorado is the only team in MLS this season who hasn't had a DP score for them. Now, granted, when you only have one DP player in your team, yeah, I mean, it makes sense why your DP hasn't scored a goal, especially when they're a midfielder. So it makes sense why Colorado hasn't scored with a DP this season. But I do feel bad not having a Colorado player on this list because of how well they've been playing the season. But yeah, third, Daniel Shalhoub is third on my list, where just more stats for you guys. 0.67 goals per 90 minutes, which is good for 7th in MLS. 22 goals plus assists this season, which is the most in MLS. He has a 0.92 goals plus assists per 90 minutes, which is tied for 5th in MLS. He has 37 shots on target, which is tied for 2nd, which if you take his shots on target and his goal scored, that means 44% of his shots go in. That is really, really, really good. Daniel Shalhoub, he's been with Sporting Kansas City since 2016, didn't have a great season last season. And now this season, he's having a career year for Sporting Kansas City. He finally started getting call-ups to the Hungary national team. And this is a guy who, look, let's face it, if he can do it again next season or if he continues to score, I wouldn't be surprised to see him leave Sporting Kansas City in the winter transfer market, where teams that are fighting relegation in Europe, they need goals. You look at a guy that's having a career year for Sporting Kansas City who's just 25 years old. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's a guy who leaves Sporting Kansas City to go to Europe. I know he did an interview a couple weeks ago where he said he's super duper happy in Kansas City. He's happy that the team has this trust in him, and I think this is a guy who's not getting the recognition that he deserves in MLS, and for that reason alone, those stats I gave you, he's number 3 on my list. Number 2, it is Carlos Gil, which probably surprises a lot of people that he's not number 1 on my list, because that's all I see people talk about on Twitter is, he's the MVP of the league, where he, quote unquote, leads MLS in assists with 16. Now, I use all my stats off of F Brief, where they have him only at 10 assists this season, which is 2nd in MLS if we go off of their assist. And MLS, we all know they use the hockey assist rule and everything, so that's why Carlos has 16 assists, where F Brief don't use the hockey assist. They go with your typical, last player that touched the ball to the goal scorer gets the assist. They say he only has 10, so 16-10, whatever you want to argue. He has 111 key passes, which is most in MLS. He has 23 goal creating chances, which is most in MLS. Let's face it, any passing category that matters, Carlos Gil leads in it, pretty much every single one of them. And so, look, you can definitely make an argument that he's the MVP this season for MLS, but for me, the reason why he isn't MVP is because New England still found ways to win when he was out injured. And so how much does Carlos matter to this team? I think he matters a lot, but when he was out for a month, New England were still finding ways to win, and that just shows me that they don't need him to win games. They don't need him to go on this crazy run that we've seen them go on this season. Yes, having him available, it makes New England a lot better of a team, but they were still finding ways to get a result when he wasn't on the field. So for that reason alone, he is number 2 on my list. And number 1, who I think should win MVP this season, is Hani Mukhtar for Nashville. He has 13 goals this season, which is tied for 4th most in the MLS. He has 8 assists, which is 5th most in MLS this season. 21 goals plus assists, which is tied for 2nd in MLS. 36 shots on target, which is tied for 2nd with Shalhoub, where you look at his numbers, 36% of his shots go in. The 13 goals, 36 shots gives you those numbers right there. And so, I mean, just watching what he's doing for this Nashville team, where not only is he scoring, he's assisting for this team as well. He has 18 goal creating chances, which is fourth most in MLS. This is a guy who didn't have a great 2020 season, and now he's really having a MVP caliber season for Nashville. Look at all the goals that CJ Sapong scored this season for Nashville. And a lot of those goals are because of the connection between him and Mukhtar. Leo's been playing fantastic, the Costa Rican, for Nashville. Those three for Nashville have been having a fantastic season. It's a reason why they're in the top 5 for most goals scored in MLS this season. And yeah, everybody talks about what they do offensively between those three guys, but defensively, Nashville, in my opinion, are really, really, really sound. One of the best teams in MLS defensively. Joe Willis leads MLS goalkeepers with 12 clean sheets. So, yeah, Hani Mukhtar, in my opinion, should win MVP. I don't think he will. I think it's going to go to Carlos Heel, but I will be interested to see when the voting comes up how many people, media members, coaching, players vote for Hani Mukhtar because scoring a ton of goals, but he's also assisting a lot of those goals for his teammates as well. So that is my top 3 MVPs if the season ended, and when the season does end. I don't think I can be convinced otherwise that these 3 guys shouldn't be the finalists. But you also asked me, Michael, who I thought, in my opinion, were the top 3 MVPs for the Philadelphia Union. And so again, I'll start from 3 all the way to 1. Number 3 on my list is Leon Flach. And the press really starts with Leon Flach. 612 pressures, which is the 4th most in MLS. 208 successful pressures, which is the most in MLS. 50 out of 70 tackles won, 9th most in MLS. And like I just mentioned, I mean, the press starts with Leon Flach. And a couple episodes ago, I talked about the pressing numbers with Brendan Aronson here, where they are now without Brendan Aronson. And Leon Flach's close to doing what Brendan Aronson did, but he's not there yet. And especially offensively, Leon Flach's not there. But Leon Flach, just his pressing numbers are pretty close to what Brendan Aronson was doing for the Union. But yeah, for me, I mean, there's a guy, like I mentioned, 20 years old, where nothing was expected out of this guy, where nobody knew what we were getting. We all thought that he was going to be a backup player, and now it's got to the point where you can't bench Leon Flach because what he does in the press, with how versatile he is, with him winning the ball back, having the Union transition from defense to attack. And I know I said it in the past where I want to see Daniel Gazdag and Jamil Montero play together. But how? How do you take Leon Flach out of the starting 11? How do you take El Brujo out of the starting 11 and play Leon Flach at the 6? You don't. You really can't. And not only do I notice this, but Ali Bedoya and the team also notices this. And this is what Ali Bedoya had to say about Leon Flach in yesterday's press conference.
He's come in and done an unbelievable job for us. His work rate is unbelievable. His ability to win balls in between the lines and start a lot of the counters for us. It's incredible for the style of play that we have. It's not easy to be put in different positions at times, and the ability to adapt. It's all mental, and he's got a great mentality, and he's been a welcome addition to our squad, our team. And, we just got to keep grinding.
Look, and you guys have heard Jim Curtin mention the soccer IQ for Leon Flach in the past, where Ali Bedoya mentions the mentality. And in the press conference, he kept pointing to his brain, to his head. Leon Flach's soccer IQ is so high. And you heard Ali say, yeah, a lot of our counterattacks start with Leon Flach winning that ball. The dude was playing as a number 6, the lone number 6. And if you look at his heat map, if you watch this game, if you were there in person, if you were there watching it on TV, Leon Flach was flying everywhere in the field. And because of that, that's why Leon Flach's number 3 on my list. Number 2 is Jack Elliott. It seems like, he's always in the right place in the right time defensively. He can get you a goal every now and then. Look, we saw him go on that crazy run against Atlanta. Probably should have scored. Brad Guzan made an unbelievable save. 2 goals this season from Jack Elliott. I believe he has 1 assist. That's pretty good for a center back, right? To get an assist. But Jack Elliott, he has 177 clearances, which is the most in MLS. He has 48 blocks, tied for third amongst center backs in MLS. He has 275 long balls completed, which is tied for 6th with Jacob Glesnes for center backs in MLS. He has 56 interceptions, which is second most on the team. I believe Kai Wagner leads the team in interceptions. I have to go back and check that. But nonetheless, I mean, and Jack Elliott can do it all for you now. Now we see Jack Elliott can do it from free kicks. And so if he can add more goals as a center back because of free kicks, geez, what a weapon we have, right? And to see him do it offensively, we know he can do it defensively. Him and Jacob Glesnes have formed a unbelievable partnership this season as the 2 center backs. It's something special that we're watching, and I am a little bit surprised that Jack Elliott, because of how well that he's been playing the last couple seasons, to see him be a mid-round draft pick out of West Virginia University, to see him playing at the level that he's playing, where those guys don't typically make it in MLS, where Jack Elliott's one of the best center backs in all of MLS. I'm a little bit surprised that we haven't seen Scotland call him up to the national team, where they don't have the greatest of center backs, but because he's been playing at such a high level, I thought sooner rather than later he would get that call up, and maybe he does. But Jack Elliott, I think's been the Union's second MVP this season, but number 1 on my list is, of course, Andre Blake. 10 clean sheets on the season, third most in MLS. This is the second time in Andre Blake's career that he's had 10 clean sheets in a season. I believe he'll get a couple more this season because of that. Remember, he had a clean sheet against Saprissa. Both of those games he had clean sheets against Saprissa. He had a clean sheet down in Atlanta in the Champions League game. I mean, Andre Blake's been playing phenomenal this season for the Philadelphia Union. 3 out of 4 penalty saves, most saved penalties in MLS this season. He has a 77.4 save percentage, which is 4th most in MLS. He has 0.91 goals against per 90 minutes, which is 1st in MLS, the fewest in MLS. Just Andre Blake's playing unbelievable. And you talk about league MVPs, where last season I thought Andre Blake had a real chance to be considered a MVP of MLS, where, yeah, you could try to make the case for Andre Blake again this season that he should be considered a MVP, but goalkeepers aren't meant to win MVP awards, always for those goal scorers, so that's why Andre Blake's not going to be considered for the MVP for all of MLS this season, but he's definitely making a case again to win back-to-back MLS Goalkeeper of the Years. And I talked about Andre Blake earlier, where he's the best goalkeeper in MLS. And one thing I did forget to mention, where this is pretty awesome, where my friend Brad sends me a picture of me on the TV screen for like 3 seconds, and then I look up and I see myself on the video board, where I'm just going like crazy. My sister and I going crazy that Andre Blake saved that penalty. And then the camera shows me like pointing, and people probably like, where is he pointing to? And like it shows that on the TV too. I was pointing to the goalkeeper coach, Phil Wheddon, because I don't know how many of you guys noticed this inside the stadium. I know for a fact that it didn't show this on the broadcast on the TV. But Phil, before Pedro Santos took that penalty kick, he goes to the touchline. He's pointing to Dre which way Pedro Santos is going to go. He's pointing to his right. He's saying he's going to kick it to the right. He's going to kick it to your right, your left, Dre. And that's exactly where Pedro Santos went. And so I was hyped because I saw this. I saw Phil Wheddon go in his pocket, pull out the penalty takers, which way they shoot and everything. And he tells Dre the exact way that Pedro is going to shoot the ball. And that's just great research from Phil, from the coaching staff, and all the coaching staff members were celebrating with Phil after Andre makes a save because, look, maybe it was an easy penalty to read, but I know Andre had to see what Phil was saying, and maybe because of that, maybe that did play a big part in why Andre Blake made that save. But it's good to see, the coaching staff celebrating on the sideline. Phil tells Andre Blake which way to go. That's just great research from the coaching staff, and to see them all get it right, I was hyped. And so that's why I was pointing to the bench. It's who I was pointing to because, like I said, I don't think a lot of people noticed that. And if you did, props to you because everybody's paying attention to what's happening on the field. They're all saying that's not a penalty. People are trying to watch the board to see that it's not a penalty. And for whatever reason, I'm looking over to the coach sideline, and here I am noticing Phil waving to Andre with his right arm, saying he's going this way, and yeah, just unbelievable teamwork from the coaching staff and Andre Blake. But that is my thoughts on the Columbus game. Michael, hopefully you enjoyed my answers to who the MLS MVPs are, who the Union MVPs are this season. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, go ahead and follow at Free Kick Pod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Go ahead and check out the website, thefreekickpodcast.com, where, I didn't write a single article while on vacation, which I guess nobody should be surprised by that, right? And if you guys, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. But yeah, like I said, next episode talking all things FC Cincinnati. 3 points the Union need to get on Saturday. And it's going to be interesting to hear what Brad has to say about Chris Albright being the new GM for Cincinnati. Hopefully those guys are as high on Cincinnati as I am myself, as I know a lot of you guys are on Chris Albright. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.